Hello everyone! Today we are going to be making this ocean theme resin painting. Let's get to it! First, you want to start with a board. I'm using a piece of untreated spruce. Next, you want to prime the piece with gesso. This prevents the wood from soaking up too much paint and acts as a barrier between the wood and the paint. After that, I recommend putting down a base color. Since mine is going to be beach themed, I will be making a gradient from blue to tan. And while the paint was still wet, I decided to add some sand to the tan part, and that didn't stick as well as I thought it would, so once the paint was dry, I went back with some Mod Podge and fully coated the area with sand. Now it's time to tape up the sides so we can begin resining this bad boy. You can opt out of the tape and this will save you the extra step of sanding, but I don't like to waste any resin, so I tape up my sides. I am using a 1:1 ratio epoxy resin for this project, which means you will use the same amount of resin and hardener. I measure these out and then pour them into another cup for mixing. You don't have to pour it into a new cup, you can simply pour one into the other, but my measuring cups weren't big enough for this, so I had to use a larger cup. Once the resin is thoroughly mixed, I poured some into separate cups in order to mix in some colors. Now, in order to get the cell look we are going for, we mostly need heat, but it helps to have pigments and colors that have different bases. For the white, I am using a resin pigment. For one of the blues, I am using alcohol ink, and for the final blue, I am going to use Pearl-Ex pigment powders. I start by putting down a base layer of the clear resin so that all of the other colors can flow better and I have a little bit of control over them. And then add the colors on top. I find it looks best to add lines of color and use this rubber brush spatula thingy and the air from my heat gun to move the colors around. The heat gun is also necessary to pop the bubbles and make the cells. After that, you can add in whatever you like. I'm choosing to put a little glitter in the waves and some crushed glass, moss, stones, and seashells along the edge of the water. Wait for the first layer to cure and then you can paint on some little fishies. This was my first attempt at the fish, so they didn't come out perfect, but it's a fun little detail to add. You want to start by putting down your darker colors and work from the outside in, since the outside is in reality the part of the fish that is lower down in the water, so it will be darker. If that makes any sense. Once the fish are dry, you can add another layer of resin. This time I added more clear than colored resins, and I added less of the blue pigment so it was very transparent. My one mistake was that I added a little too much white to the piece and covered up some of the fish that I had painted, but the end result you can hardly tell anyways, so I don't really mind. It didn't cover up my favorite fish, so we're all good. Once everything was cured, I removed the tape and sanded the edges. If you decided to skip the tape, then you won't have to sand the edges, but you may have to sand the back of the piece because there will be little drips all around the underside edges. Before adding the final coat of resin, I paint the sides. And after that, all you have to do is add one final coat of resin, making sure to cover the whole top and sides. I go back once it's fully cured and make sure there aren't any drips on the underside that need to be sanded before I add my hanging hardware and put it up on the wall for everyone to see. And there we have it. I really enjoyed making this piece. It's so bright, a really nice contrast to my Galaxy resin pieces. I hope you found this video helpful. If you want to see more like this, like and subscribe. Check out the links in the description to my other social media. I post art daily. Hope you have a great day. Bye.